The Pax Romana, which began under Augustus, was a 200-year period of peace in which Rome experienced minimal expansion by military forces. After the demise of the Second Triumvirate, Augustus restored the outward facade of the free republic with governmental power vested in the Roman Senate, the executive magistrates, and the legislative assemblies. In reality, however, he retained his autocratic power over the republic as a military dictator. By law, Augustus held powers granted to him for life by the Senate, including supreme military command and those of tribune and censor. It took several years for Augustus to develop the framework within which a formally republican state could be led under his sole rule. Augustus passed a series of laws between the years 30 and 2 BCE that transformed the constitution of the Roman Republic into the constitution of the Roman Empire. During this time, Augustus reformed the Roman system of taxation, developed networks of roads with an official courier system, established a standing army, established the Praetorian Guard, created official police and firefighting services for Rome, and rebuilt much of the city during his reign. During the first settlement, Augustus modified the Roman political system to make it more palatable to the senatorial classes, eschewing the open authoritarianism exhibited by Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. In 28 BCE, in a calculated move, Augustus eradicated the emergency powers he held as a dictator and returned all powers and provinces to the Senate and the Roman people. Members of the Senate were unhappy with this prospect, and in order to appease them, Augustus agreed to a 10-year extension of responsibilities over disorderly provinces. As a result of this, Augustus retained imperium over the provinces where the majority of Rome's soldiers were stationed. Augustus also rejected monarchical titles, instead calling himself Princeps Civitatis, first citizen. The resulting constitutional framework became known as the Principate, the first phase of the Roman Empire. At this time, Augustus was given honorifics that made his full name Imperator Caesar Divi Filius Augustus. Imperator stressed military power and victory and emphasized his role as commander-in-chief. Divi Filius roughly translates to son of the divine, enhancing his legitimacy as a ruler without deifying him completely. The use of Caesar provided a link between himself and Julius Caesar, who was still very popular among lower classes. Finally, the name Augustus raised associations to Rome's illustrious and majestic traditions, without creating heavy authoritarian overtones. By the end of the first settlement, Augustus was in an ideal political position. Although he no longer held dictatorial powers, he had created an identity of such influence that authority followed naturally. In the wake of Augustus's poor health, a second settlement was announced in 23 BCE. During this time, Augustus outwardly appeared to rein in his constitutional powers, but really continued to extend his dominion throughout the empire. Augustus renounced his 10-year consulship, but in return secured the following concessions for himself: a seat on the consul's platform at the front of the curia, the right to speak first in a Senate meeting, the right to summon a meeting of the Senate, which was a useful tool for policy making, care of Rome's grain supply, which gave him sweeping patronage powers over the plebes. Augustus was also granted the role of tribunicia potestas, which enabled him to act as the guardian of the citizens of Rome. This position came with a number of benefits, including the right to propose laws to the Senate whenever he wanted, veto power of the laws, and the ability to grant amnesty to any citizen accused of a crime. Though the role of tribunicia potestas effectively gave Augustus legislative supremacy, it also had many positive connotations harkening back to the Republic, making Augustus's position less offensive to the aristocracy. Beyond Rome, Augustus was granted maius imperium, meaning greater proconsular power. This position enabled him to effectively override the orders of any other provincial governor in the Roman Empire, in addition to governing his own provinces and armies. The Pax Romana, Latin for Roman peace, was a long period of relative peace and minimal expansion by military forces experienced by the Roman Empire in the 1st and 2nd centuries CE. Since this period was initiated during Augustus's reign, it is sometimes called Pax Augusta. Its span was approximately 206 years, from 27 BCE to 180 CE. The Pax Romana started after Augustus, then Octavian, met and defeated Mark Antony in the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Augustus created a junta of the greatest military magnates and gave himself the titular honor. By binding together these leading magnates into a single title, he eliminated the prospect of civil war. The Pax Romana was not immediate, despite the end of the Civil War, because fighting continued in Hispania and in the Alps. Despite continuous wars of imperial expansion on the empire's frontiers and one year-long civil war over the imperial succession, the Roman world was largely free from large-scale conflict for more than 2 centuries. Augustus dramatically enlarged the empire, annexing Egypt, Dalmatia, Pannonia, Noricum, and Raetia, expanded possessions in Africa as well as into Germania, and completed the conquest of Hispania. Beyond Rome's frontiers, he secured the empire with a buffer region of client states and made peace with the troublesome Parthian Empire through diplomacy. Augustus closed the gates of Janus, the set of gates to the temple of Janus, which was closed in times of peace and opened in times of war, 3 times. The first time was in 29 BCE and the second in 25 BCE. The third closure is undocumented, but scholars have persuasively dated the event to 13 BCE during the Ara Pacis ceremony, which was held after Augustus and Agrippa jointly returned from pacifying the provinces. Augustus faced some trouble making peace an acceptable mode of life for the Romans, who had been at war with one power or another continuously for 200 years prior to this period. The Romans regarded peace not as an absence of war, but the rare situation that existed when all opponents had been beaten down and lost the ability to resist. Augustus's challenge was to persuade Romans that the prosperity they could achieve in the absence of war was better for the empire than the potential wealth and honor acquired from fighting. Augustus succeeded by means of skillful propaganda. Subsequent emperors followed his lead, sometimes producing lavish ceremonies to close the gates of Janus, issuing coins with Pax on the reverse, and patronizing literature extolling the benefits of the Pax Romana. The Ara Pacis Augusti, or the Altar of Augustan Peace, is one of the best examples of Augustan artistic propaganda and the prime symbol of the new Pax Romana. It was commissioned by the Senate in 13 BCE to honor the peace and bounty established by Augustus following his return from Spain and Gaul. The theme of peace is seen most notably in the east and west walls of the Ara Pacis, each of which has 2 panels, although only small fragments remain for one panel on each side. On the east side sits an unidentified goddess, presumed to be by scholars to be Tellus, Venus, or Peace, within an allegorical scene of prosperity and fertility. Twins sit on her lap along with a cornucopia of fruits. Personifications of the wind and sea surround her, each riding on a bird or a sea monster. Beneath the women rests a bull and lamb, both sacrificial animals, and flowering plants fill the empty space. The nearly incomplete second eastern panel appears to depict a female warrior, possibly Roma, amid the spoils of conquest. Augustus died in 14 CE at the age of 75. He may have died from natural causes, although unconfirmed rumors swirled that his wife Livia poisoned him. His adopted son, also stepson and former son-in-law, Tiberius, succeeded him to the throne.